Hello there, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another edition of the MrWarrenHayes Show. Well, not the MrWarrenHayes Show, but the G1 recap. G1 recap. G1 31 Climax. It's coming to an end. This is my second to last recap that we are going to be doing here tonight. We are very, very, very close. But yeah, there you go. I mean, this is where we're at, right? This is the thing, and it is fantastic. And we are going to be moving forward here, right here on youtube.com/MrWarrenHayes. I mean, we're itching. We're getting so close to the end here. We're getting so very close to the end, and things are coming full circle to a certain degree, right? To a certain more than a certain degree. We're kind of seeing where the wind is blowing. Now let's bring this all together. I'm going to go through the matches, of course, as I usually do. Maybe, we won't maybe go in as much in depth as in regards to some of the matches. But we are going to head on over to, but we are going to be discussing, though. One thing we are going to be discussing is the probable outcomes here, right? This is what we're going to try and do here. The probable outcome, especially, we're talking about Block A, right? Because Block A, there's a couple of scenarios that we're going to chat about. All right, let's get to it then. Let's go right in. Night 15, which was October 13th, started off with Tomohiro Ishii defeating Yujiro Takahashi, the Tokyo Pimp. Block A still had a few things that were possible. There were a few openings here. Ishii needed this win to even be remotely considered to be in contention. The rest of the evening wouldn't go so well for Tommy Ishii's chances. Wouldn't go so well. Yujiro here's in control for the first part of the match here. Even if Ishii tries his best to fight back, it looks like in this match, it looks like Yujiro has an answer for everything, right? Like he's just countering everything until Ishii hits a power slam. Then Yujiro lands a fisherman's buster. Ishii hits a suplex and then a superplex as well. Stalling superplex at that. Yujiro fights back and lands a DDT. Blocks an enziguri and clotheslines Ishii down. Buckle bombs him. And Yujiro, right? Buckle bombs Ishii like really like on the top of his head. Like it wasn't a pretty sight at all. And because Ishii's head really bounced off the turnbuckle pad, but he was all right. Tommy Ishii looks like, it's hard to figure out how to put this guy away. Miami Shine connects, still can't put him away. Pimp Juice still can't put him away. Ishii avoids Big Juice though, tries the brain buster. Yujiro hits another lariat, but Ishii eventually gets the brain buster and the win. Fine match here. Kind of felt like Yujiro's last hurrah, right? His last attempt at the at getting things done. Ishii got the win here. It was important for him to get the win. Like I said though, as the evening would progress, wouldn't necessarily turn out to be the best situation, but this is where we're at. And Tomohiro Ishii is at 10 points at this stage here. Kenta defeated Tonga Loa. This was a very important win for Kenta to remain in contention, and he picked up his 2 points here. In a good little match. I enjoyed this match. Kenta and Tonga Loa, they two sweet each other. All of Bullet Club here was going to throughout all of Bullet Club. Let me start over. All of Bullet Club throughout the proceedings, right? The entire G1. they were the least annoying. Like, not many like over, run-ins and shenanigans that we're used to Bullet Club. Sure, tried to use some nefarious schemes to win, some, lots of low blows and stuff like that. Don't get me wrong. But nothing as compared as previous years where, Bullet Club would really get infuriating, really, really infuriating. There was this real feeling of respect, and you kind of felt like, the whole over cheating thing was really left to the House of Torture. So, it made for some interesting Bullet Club interactions. But Tonga Loa here with Kenta, lots of feeling out. Some kicks by Kenta and some stalling, of course. Kenta does the stalling a bit until Jado just stands in the way. Jado's like, no, you're not doing this anymore. Keeps him from rolling out of the ring. And then Loa starts working on Kenta on the floor. And in the ring as well, he hits the standing moonsault, Operation Jado Killer. Kenta hits the flying clothesline, a power slam. They trade kicks until Loa hits an enziguri, then the blue thunder bomb. Kenta with the flying drop kick, the coup de grace. There's a ref bump and a low blow by Kenta after Tonga Loa jaw jacked at him. Jado's mad. He didn't care for that at all. He grabs the kendo stick. Ref gets up, and then he drops the kendo stick a la Eddie Guerrero, right? So the ref is distracted, trying to tend to Jado. Kenta goes to use the kendo stick while the referee is distracted, but Tonga Loa low blows him. Fun little spot. Kenta tries to run out of a power bomb and roll up Tonga Loa, but Loa blocks him until Kenta surprise rolls him up and puts the feet on the ropes for 3. But there's still a show of respect, honor among thieves kind of thing. So that was fun little end to the match, and an important win for Kenta, who is up there at 12. Tonga Loa's tournament had been done for a while at this point. Zack Sabre Jr. defeated Nato. Nato? Who's Nato? Yano. I want to say hello to Beep Boop. Good to see you. Welcome to the chat. This starts off fast with Zack Sabre Jr. not hanging around for any Yano shenanigans. There's even a near fall early on where Yano rolls to the outside to regroup. And, that this is where the shenanigans get in. Yano's like, come fight me on the floor. Zack Sabre Jr. is like, no, you come in here. This goes on for a while until Sabre rolls out to the floor. And then Yano's rolls back into the ring. And, you know how this goes. Yano picks up Zack Sabre Jr. after a while, after doing some grapples in the ring. He picks him up and he carries him right through the curtain, up the ramp and through the curtain. Yano comes out after some crashes, after the referee starts doing the countdown, and Zack Sabre Jr. comes out with a bag on his head, and he's like, well, I can't see anything. Just take off the head. Just take off the bag, Zack. Just take off the bag. They trade some, but, he does take the bag off, and he eventually reaches the ring before the count of 20. There's handcuffs that get involved. Zack Sabre Jr. handcuffs himself to Yano. That wasn't something that they expected. That's Yano expected. Zack Sabre Jr. wraps him up in the ring. Yano tries to get the keys, but Zack Sabre Jr. keeps him from getting the keys, leans back in an armbar. Yano taps. There you go. That was another win for Zack Sabre Jr., who is at 12. Still the guy who's fought, he still has he doesn't have the winningest record, but he's still the only guy who fought Naito in this tournament. And finally, we had Shingo taking on Grado Khan and defeating Grado Khan. Fun main event. I liked it. I think Grado Khan is definitely an asset to this company. They brawl on the floor after shoulder tackling each other in the ring, a big show of strength, two big, strong guys. And this is what this match was, right? This is a good strike exchange that ends with the Mongolian chops, which Shingo returns with his own Mongolian chops and a DDT to take the big guy down. He goes for a sliding D, but it's countered into a half Nelson and into an arm drag by Grado Khan. And this is, again, like I said, two guys hitting each other hard. It's a match about who can hit the guy harder, who can hit the other guy harder, who can hurt the other guy more. And it's a blast. It's a good one. They strong style each other. And it's a throat, the Saito suplex by Shingo that follows, bicycle kick by Grado Khan, lariat by Shingo, backdrop suplex by Grado Khan, and then a sliding D by Shingo that puts an end to that really fun sequence. Speed and power moves, it's good stuff. Shingo gets caught in an over-the-knee backbreaker. Grado Khan slams him over his knee, then into a power slam just as Shingo starts to fight back. Shingo blocks two shots by Grado Khan and swings him into a Made in Japan. Grado Khan hits a gourd buster. Grado Khan with the punch, right? Boom! But Shingo doesn't go down. He answers with a lariat. And the Last of the Dragon puts Grado Khan away. Fun main event. Grado Khan looking great in these main event spots. He's holding his own. It's fantastic stuff. I enjoyed it. It was a good night. It was a good main event. Strong stuff. I'm telling you, Grado Khan, he's building up the rep to be something special for the company. I'm not saying that he's going to be main eventing the Tokyo Dome in 2 years' time, maybe, but he's definitely getting up there. Connor McCabe, good to see you. Welcome. Give me a second here. There we go. All right. So move on to night 16, Block B. DGMC, no, quiet, shush. We're heading over to night 16 here, right? Block. We'll come back to Block A to talk about the possibilities and what, the stuff that's bubbling underneath here. But let's move on to night B. Now, as opposed to Block A, Block B has been very dominant, or dominated by two guys and a third guy, right? So there's, this was one of these G1 situations where, you kind of look at some of the under matches of guys who've been eliminated, because most of the field in Block B has been eliminated, right? Tanahashi, Sanada, Tamatanga, Goto, Yoshihashi, Taichi, Chase Owens, they're all out of the tournament. So when you sit down to watch an evening of pro wrestling and, you've got Chase Owens versus Taichi, you're like, well, what's the point? I'm like, there's, a lot of the emotional investment in tournament wrestling that's taken out of it when you're like, well, these guys are eliminated. Same thing with Sanada and Goto. Same thing with Tanahashi versus Yoshihashi. I'm like, these matches don't hold any stakes, especially when we're so close to the end of the tournament here, when everything is just happening between three guys at the top. Like, well, it's kind of hard to get into it. The emotional investment isn't necessarily there. Sorry to say. But But yeah, this is where we're at right now. And you can question yourself. You can say, well, look, the best way to avoid this kind of situation is not book, your tournament finals in this fashion here, where you have just like three matches out of your 5-match card, which have no implications in your finals. That's the majority of the evening. Like we had Chase Owens defeating Taichi. Fun little match to start off. Didn't overstay its welcome. Owens screws with Taichi to start with, trying to bait him into doing sumo stuff. All right, that's fine. Anyway, it's a simple match that ends with an Alabama Jam by Chase Owens. Little shout out to beautiful Bobby Eaton. Package pile driver. Clean win. Chase Owens gets another win. Good for him. Fantastic. Sanada versus Goto, it's just, one of these matches. These seem to happen a lot to Sanada, where Sanada tries to do the other dude's offense, and then the other dude tries to do hit Sanada's offense then, and then, and it was an okay match, don't get me wrong. Again, just no personal investment in this match. Two guys that aren't moving forward, that the win doesn't change anything. There's no spoilers for anyone else. It's like this is a completely eventless match for the G1, and it kind of came across like that way. It was hard fought, but it ended up just being, average. And I get it, you as you're putting on live matches, you can't make every one of these matches like sub 10 minutes, right? Because then the audience has to feel like they got their money's worth. I understand that, but then again, don't book it this way. It was a little too long for what it was, and all right. Hiroshi Tanahashi defeated Yoshihashi. I actually liked this match. I thought this was fun. Am I starting to warm to Yoshihashi, perennial underdog, hardworking Yoshihashi, right? Like I don't know what the deal is here. I think I might be slowly buying into Yoshihashi, the underdog, taking lessons wherever he can to mount forth these big comebacks. This was well wrestled, and Tanahashi was extremely generous with him and gave him a lot. And Yoshihashi took every opportunity he had. He's worked hard this entire tournament. There's nothing wrong with that. You can't fault him with that. He worked hard the entire tournament. They lock each other up in chanceries at some point. They start hitting twists and shouts on each other. It's pretty cool. Pump handle backbreaker by Yoshihashi and a Meteora. Kumagoroshi, but Tanahashi kicks out of the pin attempt. Karma gets reversed into a twist and shout. Yoshihashi is fired up, but he hits a sling blade and aces high in a high fly flow. That's it. Again, another strong performance by Yoshihashi. It's good. It's good stuff. I mean, there's nothing bad to say about it. It was, and here's the thing is like if Grado really wanted to get behind Yoshihashi and start taking him seriously outside of the G1 and outside of never 6-man titles, he'd be great. I think we'd get to the G1 next year and everything would be fantastic. Jeff Cobb and Evil had their match. This had direct implications. Here was a very important match for Jeff Cobb, even more important for Evil. If Evil wanted to be considered as a potential block winner, he had to absolutely win this match. Well, he didn't. Jeff Cobb defeated him. He beat him. And I like this match a lot. Jeff Cobb wasn't screwing around with Evil here. Slugs him right at the start of the match. Evil goes to chop Cobb, who is immovable, right? And this is the this is ultimately the story of the match here. Cobb, once again, full invincible mode. You know what I mean by invincible? Not like none of the offense, he no-sells all the time. That's not what I mean. He could not... Evil was outclassed by a much more resilient and powerful opponent. Because the only way Evil can get any advantages on Cobb is to use chicanery. It's the only way. It spills to the floor. Evil does the home run chair swing while Togo distracts the ref, and they do the timekeeper table spot. And the timekeeper took a hell of a spill too, or that. But then Cobb reverses things on Evil, brings him over to the timekeeper's table, rams his head a couple of times on it, puts the bell hammer, in his hand to sort of signify that he's the timekeeper. Then Cobb grabs Dick Togo and does the timekeeper spot, but Evil being on the table side this time. So fun. I like that. Of course, the match doesn't end there. We go back into the ring. He hits the standing moonsault and gets a close three count on the pin attempt after that. Evil eye rakes his way out of the Tour of the Islands and uses the exposed turnbuckle to get the upper hand on Cobb. Cobb does the corner running thing where he's carrying Evil on his shoulders. There's a ref bump. Cobb hits the Oklahoma Stampede. And all this time, the ref bump, doing the Oklahoma Stampede, he was carrying big old Evil right on his shoulder. Like, it's an impressive feat of strength. Togo hits Cobb with a chair. He and Evil team up to do the Magic Killer. The referee is back. Evil hits Darkness Falls. That doesn't put Cobb away. Cobb goes for the spin cycle, causes another ref bump, and then Togo comes in with the garrote. But Cobb fights them off. He eats a low blow. He avoids a chair shot and hits the Tour of the Islands on Evil to get the win. So, the House of Torture here did everything they could to get on top of Jeff Cobb here, but it just couldn't happen. Cobb, too strong, too powerful, too great of a guy to actually have that happen. And you can kind of wonder, what's the end game? What's the end game for what is the end game here for Evil in regards to his New Japan advancements and so on and so forth? And I saw the Super J cast. They were talking about Evil, and it makes a lot of sense to me. I do have original thoughts, but when I don't, I source them. So sometimes you read stuff and you're like, oh, this makes a lot of sense to me. And I like this idea where Evil is probably just better off being positioned as a guy who, he's a mid-card guy who can sneak his way into top situations and then eventually just eventually just have everything sort of and then have everything sort of break apart, sort of be this spoiler to sort of make everyone kind of pissed off and maybe even reach the main event, maybe even get the title again, but then head on back to mid-card where he just hangs around for a while. Maybe that's exactly what his role should be. And it kind of makes sense to me. Because no one really cares about main event Evil, and it's kind of a thing now, right? It's kind of a fear that everyone has. He worked this match fine. He worked it like a heel. And I'll even go as far as to say this. Sometimes I look at how the Evil matches are booked, and they are booked so completely to the antithesis of what you expect anyway out of a New Japan match. With all the interference and stuff, it almost feels like he's designed to be, the North American promotion heel. Let's go right out and say it, like the WWE heel that uses all sorts of devices and chicanery to get to non-finishes or, screw job endings. Something that a lot of us don't like, hate. So when you start seeing that in New Japan, you're like, no, this isn't the place to do it. But maybe this is exactly the calculated reason why Evil acts the way he does. So the fact that he's the WWE villain, just since he's calling on all these tropes that we see all the time in WWE or historically are a part of WWE, though, then maybe, we're on the right track here to understanding what his role here. And in the so basically, what this set out to do was what it successfully did is eliminate Evil from contention as the block winner and place Jeff Cobb up at 16 points at the top. But then we had Kazuchika Okada versus Tamatanga. And at this point, Okada was coming into this night with 14 points. And his last match is with Jeff Cobb. So once Evil lost, Okada was safe. There was no reason, as far as safe as far as being a contender to winning the final, to winning the block. Evil's out of the way, so it's just him and Cobb. So regardless of whether Okada won or lost on night 16, it would still boil down to him and Cobb exclusively. So Okada, win or lose, is still a contender, and he lost. He lost against Tamatanga, who had a fantastic match against the Rainmaker. Because, yeah, that's it. And maybe this is something that Okada had in the back of his mind. He's like, whatever happens, I still have a shot at the block. I don't care. Lots of grappling at first from both guys until Tamatanga starts getting real physical, takes Okada down with that Meng chop that he does, which is really cool. Okada hits the basement dropkick and a neck breaker. It spills to the floor. Tama hits a cutter across the barricade on Okada, which was pretty dope. And it's a physical match, so there's going to be a lot of people hitting each other, trying to hit big moves. Okada hits a big flapjack and a DDT. Drop kicks Tama off the top turnbuckle to the floor. There's a draping DDT on the floor off the barricade. Back in the ring, Okada tries to set in the money clip. Tama fights back with a clasping DDT, Tongan twist. Goes for a gun stun, but it's interrupted by a spinning Rainmaker. Then Tama fights back with a Death Valley bomb and an angel dive. And Tama just hammers him down, but he eats a drop kick. There's a fun little sequence here. Okada hits a tombstone, goes for the Rainmaker, it's ducked. Tama goes for a gun stun, it's blocked. There's a Rainmaker that follows up. Tama ducks again. Tama avoids another drop kick, goes for the gun stun again. It's blocked again. So he hits a Bloody Sunday. That's right. Homage to Bullet Club OG Prince Devitt right there. Soon after that, Tamatonga's in a landslide position, but he reverses out of it with a DDT-style driver. And he hits a double underhook pile driver, beating the Rainmaker in the ring. 1, 2, 3. It was good stuff. Tamatanga, after the match, has this post-match promo and says, like, this is where I restart my history. Is Is this where I don't know how deep we need to look into these comments, this comment specifically, but it's exciting to think, for me anyway, that Tamatanga is going to get like a little something extra, a little nudge, a little push, a little something more than just being the guy in Gorillas of Destiny. Because I was, I've seen people being like, well, is Tamatanga, is he gonna make a play for the leadership of Bullet Club? Is he gonna start kicking people out? You never know. But I was really excited about the ending. I thought it was a good main event, and Tamatanga's been great throughout the tournament. It's like I was saying last night on the stream, but I'll talk about it more when I wrap everything up on my final recap show next week. But if we're going to remember this G1 for anything, if the G1 31 Climax will be remembered for anything, it will be remembered for the excellent work from the undercard guys, from Yoshihashi, from the Gorillas of Destiny, from Chase Owens, all of those four guys in particular. Fantastic work. Even though they're all in losing efforts, and Tamatanga actually scored the highest amount of points from between all of them at 6. These are all guys that you felt when you saw them, they're just tossed in here because, kind of thing. Because we don't have anyone else to put in there. Good stuff. I wouldn't sit here and recommend you to watch, I wouldn't recommend you watching like anything in particular. I think, there were solid nights, but if you feel like skipping them, you absolutely can. I think Jeff Cobb versus Evil is a fun time, and I think Tamatanga versus Kazuchika Okada is really good. If anything, the last 2 matches of night 16, go right ahead. So you see on the screen right now the standings where we are as we are leading into the final 2 nights, night 17 and 18 of the G1 31 Climax. Or the G1 Climax 31. Block B, very simple. We talked about it. I should have crossed out Evil. I don't know why I didn't do it, but he's effectively eliminated. There's nothing that can be done at this point. Block B, night 16. There's only one match that really concerns us that has any real investment. It's the final. It's Jeff Cobb versus Kazuchika Okada. It's the final match. It's the 2 guys who have the most points. If Okada wins, well, if Jeff Cobb wins, he wins. If Okada wins, he'll tie Jeff Cobb, but he has the tiebreaker since he will have defeated Jeff Cobb, and he'll move on as the block winner. I think this is what's going to happen. I think Kazuchika Okada is winning the whole thing this year. Block A is where things get so sweet, but also so complicated. And I'm going to give a big shout out to Chris Samza. Does the New Japan stats, at the Chris Samza on Twitter, sportofprowrestling.com. He does all the stats. So he sat down and made the job so simple for guys like me to come here and talk about the possibilities for the conclusion of Block A, because there's 4 guys at the top. Tomohiro Ishii is officially, he's out. He's no longer in contention. But Block A is going to be really exciting. It's going to be really interesting because there are 4 matches. There are 4 guys who are going to be fighting 4 matches on night 17. I blanked out for a second. On night 17. And they are all fighting. They're not fighting amongst each other. They're all fighting, except for Ibushi and Kenta. Sorry, that's right. So it's going to be exciting to see what they're going to do here. Now, Chris Samsa sat down and he devised that there are 16 probable scenarios for victory here. 16! There's 16 ways that he's come up with for this guy to win the match. And out of these 6 possibilities, the one guy who has the most amount of chances to win is Kenta. The guy who has the least amount of chances to win is Shingo. But Kenta, I would argue, has the most convoluted ways of winning here. Let's walk you through this, okay? Let's start going down this path here. Scenario number 1 on the final night. Ibushi versus Kenta. Ibushi defeats Kenta. If Zack Sabre Jr. defeats Tonga Loa, Shingo defeats Yujiro Takahashi, the Tokyo Pimp. I'm not going to do that every time. And Tomohiro Ishii defeats Yano, which, you know, whatever. Ibushi, Sabre, and Shingo will all tie at 14 points, but Zack has the tiebreakers on both Ibushi and Shingo, so Zack goes forward. This is actually probably the most simple outcome here. This is probably the most simplest resolution. Let's try another scenario here. Ibushi defeating Kenta, Tonga Loa defeating Zack Sabre Jr., Shingo defeating Yujiro, and Ishii defeating Yano. That would leave Ibushi and Shingo at 14 points each. But Ibushi has the tiebreaker on Shingo. So Ibushi would move on, would be the winner of Block A. Let's try this scenario here. Ibushi defeats Kenta. Tonga Loa defeats Zack Sabre Jr. Yujiro defeats Shingo. And Ishii defeats Yano. Ibushi would be the only wrestler at 14 points, so he wins the block. So if Zack and Shingo lose and Ibushi wins, Ibushi moves forward. That's even simpler, I think, than the original Zack Sabre Jr. plan. That's even simpler. A little improbable, but, you know, because here's the thing, like, Tonga Loa might actually pick up a win here, because all of the Tamatanga got 3 wins here out of the Tongans here. Tonga Loa got 1. He still might, you know, and everyone got a big upset. This might be his big upset against Sabre. We'll see. Now, if Ibushi defeats Kenta, again, Zack Sabre Jr. defeats Tonga Loa, Yujiro defeats Shingo, and Ishii defeats Yano. Ibushi and Zack Sabre Jr. will tie at 14. Zack Sabre Jr. will move forward as the winner of the block because he has the tiebreaker on Ibushi. We still haven't talked about Kenta yet. We're getting there. Ibushi, in this scenario here, Ibushi defeats Kenta. Zack Sabre Jr. defeats Tonga Loa, and Shingo defeats Yujiro, but Yano defeats Ishii. It's the same scenario. I don't know why I went, but it's the same scenario as the first time. Zack Sabre Jr. has the tiebreakers on Ibushi and Shingo, so that'll be the end of that. Zack wins the block. Ibushi defeats Kenta. Tonga Loa defeats Zack Sabre Jr. Shingo defeats Yujiro, and Yano defeats Ishii. Same situation. Ibushi and Shingo at 14. Ibushi wins. Like, basically, the Yano and Ishii matches, in situations where Ibushi defeats Kenta, it has no incidence. It doesn't apply. So I'm going to skip a couple of scenarios here. Start moving on to one of the more complicated ones. I'm going to try and walk through it as clearly as possible. Kenta defeats Ibushi. First and foremost. Hello, Evan. Nice to see you. Welcome to the chat. Kenta defeats Ibushi. Zack Sabre Jr. defeats Tonga Loa. Shingo defeats Yujiro, and Yano defeats Ishii. Kenta, Zack Sabre Jr., and Shingo all tie at 14. Kenta, Zack Sabre Jr., and Shingo all have a tiebreaker against each other. So then we go back to tiebreakers over wrestlers at 12 points, which is Ibushi, basically. Kenta has a tiebreaker, so does Zack Sabre Jr., but Shingo does it. So Shingo's eliminated. Then you have to go to head-to-head competition. Kenta defeated Zack Sabre Jr. You go to head-to-head competition. Kenta defeated Zack Sabre Jr., so Kenta would win the block in that situation. So Kenta's wins get a little more complicated. Let's move on to this one here. Kenta defeats Ibushi. Zack Sabre Jr. defeats Tonga Loa. Shingo defeats Yujiro, and Ishii defeats Yano. Kenta, Zack Sabre Jr., Shingo all tied at 14. Kenta, Zack Sabre Jr., and Shingo all have a tiebreaker against each other. We go to the head-to-head again. Next level down is Ibushi and Ishii at 12. So Kenta has 2 tiebreakers there. Zack Sabre Jr. only has 1. Shingo has 1. Kenta wins the block. Now, just the fact that these scenarios are somewhat complicated, I feel that Grado won't go this path. But there is a simple way for Kenta to win the match, win the block. Here's how it goes. Kenta, of course, has to defeat Ibushi. That's the prime suspect here. That's the first thing. Zack Sabre Jr. defeats Tonga Loa. Yujiro defeats Shingo. And Ishii defeats Yano. That ties Kenta and Sabre at 14. Kenta wins because he has the tiebreaker over Sabre. That's a simple one. Got another, so that's a simple way to do it. Shingo, on his hand. If Kenta defeats Ibushi, Tonga Loa defeats Zack Sabre Jr., he wins against Yujiro, and Ishii defeats Yano. Shingo wins the block on a tiebreaker over Kenta because he and Kenta will tie for 14 points. And all the other scenarios here possible involve Kenta. No, not all of them. There's another Shingo possibility here where Kenta defeats Ibushi, Tonga Loa defeats Zack Sabre Jr., Shingo defeats Yujiro, and Yano defeats Ishii. Kenta, Shingo tied again at 14. Shingo has the tiebreaker on Kenta, so he moves forward. If Kenta defeats Ibushi and Tonga Loa defeats Zack Sabre Jr., Yujiro defeats Shingo, and Ishii defeats Yano, Kenta is the only wrestler at 14. And it's the same thing if Yano defeats Ishii and Tonga Loa and Yujiro win as well. He'll be the only wrestler at 14 and he wins the block. That's a very improbable situation. And if Kenta defeats Ibushi, Zack Sabre Jr. defeats Tonga Loa, Yujiro defeats Shingo, and Yano defeats Ishii, Kenta and Zack Sabre Jr. will tie at 14 points, and Kenta will win the block on the tiebreaker over Zack Sabre Jr. So Kenta really does have the most amount of scenarios. He has a couple of probable ones, but they're not, what's the word I'm looking for? They're a little convoluted. Let's put it that way, right? They're a little convoluted. So we'll see what happens. We'll definitely see what happens. But hey, I'm excited to see how this is going to happen. And it's all happening Monday and Wednesday this week. Block A, final night, October 18. Of course, the main event being Kota Ibushi versus Kenta. And I think it's going to go boil down to those two. But it's going to be exciting throughout the evening. Because Shingo has a match, Sabre has a match, and then we're wrapping up with Kota Ibushi and Kenta. I honestly don't know where they're going to go. I feel like Shingo's not going to win. I feel like they're not going forward with Shingo. My gut wants to tell me that they're going with Kota Ibushi, but I feel like Zack Sabre Jr. should get it because Zack had a really good tournament. Just tore through everything. And again, being the only guy who wrestled the full field, right? Cap it off. Make it feel like it's worth something. So that'll be exciting. As for October 20 on Wednesday, the final night of Block B, I mean, there's one match really that interests us, and it's Kazuchika Okada versus Jeff Cobb. You know, everyone else in the block there will just be fighting for pride, adding some points, but nothing else on the card has any implication on the main event. Even if Evil wins his match against Sanada, which he probably will if you ask me, it'll bring him up to 14 points, but Okada has the win over... But if Okada wins, Okada's at 16 points. If Okada loses, Jeff Cobb will be at 18 and win. Like, Evil is out of it. So there's nothing that can affect the outcome of the block out of Kazuchika Okada versus Jeff Cobb. So that's the match. That's the main attraction. That's the big one. They set it up the entire tournament for it to be the final boss for Okada. This is where we are. That's where we're at right now. But right now, we are at the end of this evening's recap. So we're going to wrap it up. Why not? Thank you everyone for joining me and hanging out. We've got one more. I'll be back then on Wednesday to break down the rest of the tournament, right? To break it all down and bid adieu to the G1 Climax 31 this year. So I'm excited. I'm excited to see how this is all going to run out. Block A is pretty cool. And some final thoughts and all that. So be sure to be here again. Whether you're watching live or on demand on youtube.com/MrWarrenHayes or on your favorite podcast application, whatever you prefer, it's up to you. And I support your decision, wherever you decide to listen to me. So thank you again, everyone. I hope you have a great weekend. We'll see you next time.